Thundersnow across China ignites fears of impending disaster. Exploring the root cause of the global economy's gradual decoupling from China. Scholar, Taiwan's Strait war could slash China's population to 280 million by 2100. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Thundersnow across China ignites fears of impending disaster. On February 21st, thundersnow, a rare weather phenomenon featuring thunder during a snowstorm, was reported across multiple provinces in China, including Jiangsu, Hubei, Hunan, and Anhui, with the sound of continuous thunder resembling explosions. Nanjing alone recorded over 700 instances of lightning within a 12-hour period. Another scene captured someone exclaiming, "Oh my, have you ever witnessed snowfall accompanied by thunder? Is that even a thing?" Locals interpret thundersnow in the first lunar month as an ominous sign, foretelling impending disasters. One Hunan resident recalled a similar weather event 3 years ago, specifically in the 12th lunar month, when China experienced heavy snow and thunder, which was then followed by 3 years of pandemic, raising fears of another disaster this year. Local state media reported that between February 19th and 20th, Hubei recorded over 6,900 lightning strikes, marking the highest occurrence of February lightning in the province in the past decade. Notably, on the evening of the 20th, Wuhan city experienced 4,000 instances of lightning within just 2 hours, which was quite terrifying. On the evening of the 20th, the Shaanxi Provincial Meteorological Station issued a yellow ice warning. Meanwhile, all entrances to highways within Taiyuan city limits were shut down. Taiyuan Wusu International Airport saw widespread cancellation and delay of flights, and multiple expressways were closed on the 20th. On February 21st, Xi'an and Shaanxi experienced freezing rain, causing icy conditions on elevated roads and resulting in a multi-vehicle pileup due to brake failure. Following the incident, traffic restrictions left people stranded on the Xi'an Expressway for hours, unable to make their way into the city. That same day, Beijing was blanketed in heavy snow, complicating travel for city residents. Exploring the root cause of the global economy's gradual decoupling from China. Since the start of 2024, China's stock market has continued to fall, even after the People's Bank of China reduced the reserve requirement ratio by 0.5 percentage points, anticipated to inject as much as 1 trillion yuan into the market. Nevertheless, this action has failed to bolster the weakened stock market. Both the Chinese and Hong Kong stock markets have uniquely faced declines for 3 straight years on a global scale. At the same time, during the Chinese Lunar New Year period, all 3 major U.S. stock indices have experienced growth, with the S&P 500 index rising by 1.4%, the Nasdaq by 2.3%, and the Dow Jones by a slight 0.04%. Meanwhile, the Taiwan stock market index surged over 600 points in early trading on February 15th, reaching a new all-time high of 18,725 points. On February 13th, the Japanese stock market exceeded 38,000 points for the first time in 34 years. This year, on January 11th, the total market capitalization of the Tokyo Stock Exchange outstripped the Shanghai Stock Exchange, reclaiming its status as the premier market in Asia, indicating differing investor expectations for economic growth between the two nations. Notably, India has emerged as a new darling for international investors. In 2023, foreign funds poured more than $21 billion into Indian equities, with global pension and sovereign wealth funds showing a marked preference for India, recognizing it as an optimal long-term investment destination, a consensus that has become evident. As of January 22, India's stock market capitalization climbed to $4.33 trillion, overtaking Hong Kong, $4.29 trillion, for the first time and becoming the world's 4th largest stock market. Losers wake up. Currently, discussions about China's GDP swiftly overtaking that of the United States have become rare, with a general sense of pessimism prevailing in the international community about the Chinese economy. This sentiment is reflected in the downgrading of China's economic outlook by various rating agencies. Major investment banks and brokerages, including Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and UBS, anticipate the continued downturn of China's housing construction market into 2024. This would mark 3 consecutive years of contraction for Chinese real estate construction, setting a record for the longest period of decline. Bloomberg reported on January 4 that Fitch Ratings had lowered the ratings of China's for major state-owned asset management companies. This decision was driven by concerns about their financial health and the anticipation of diminished government support. In response to economic risks emanating from China, the South Korean government formed a task force in 2023. Its focus is on monitoring the development and evolution of the Chinese economy and assessing the CCP's response strategies. The pandemic has prompted Western governments and large corporations to start decoupling from the Chinese supply chain. This trend has been followed by foreign asset management companies accelerating their exit from China's financial markets. Notably, Vanguard announced its departure from China in November of the previous year, and BlackRock disclosed the liquidation of its equity funds in China in September. Furthermore, Canada's 3 largest pension funds and the Norwegian Sovereign Fund have also decided to shut their offices in China. Data from Prechain, a privately held London-based investment data company, as of November 24, 2023, shows that private equity funds focused on Chinese acquisitions failed to raise any funds, a stark contrast to the $210 million raised in 2022 and the $13.2 billion garnered before the pandemic in 2019. In its most recent quarterly assessment on February 13, MSCI Incorporated, an American finance company headquartered in New York City, excluded 66 Chinese firms from the MSCI China Index. The CCP is feeling the cold wind of the West's economic separation from China. At the Munich Security Conference on February 17, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi asserted that the global economy cannot revert to being isolated small ponds, indicating that the momentum towards economic globalization is irreversible. Independent commentator Kai Shinkoan remarked on the X platform that Wang Yi's statement is essentially self-delusional. The reality is that an increasing number of discerning individuals recognize the necessity of reducing risk through decoupling from China. China has been the greatest beneficiary of economic globalization to date, effectively the sole winner. Other developed economies, including the United States, which were advocates for globalization, have ended up on the losing side. These losers have only now awakened to the need to disengage and sever ties, although such realizations may have come too late. Chinese economy slumps, widespread lamentation among the public. The Chinese economy's downturn is causing a wave of sorrow among the public. Youth unemployment rates remain alarmingly high. Individuals, after losing their jobs, resort to hiding in libraries to feign daily routines, concealing their unemployment from family. Dramatic falls in both the housing and stock markets have decimated the middle class's wealth. The private sector is riddled with despair, leading to a trend of emigration and escape. According to Meng Jun, a mainland Chinese entrepreneur now residing in the U.S., the days ahead are surely going to be harder. With the economy in such a state, massive layoffs, and everyone holding back on spending out of fear of being the next job loss victim. Consider the plight of those with mortgages and car loans. After the property markets collapse, how many are left with debts exceeding their assets? And who pumped up the property prices but the Communist Party, through land sales and leveraging property developers for profit? Take the Evergrande crisis, for example. Where did all that money go? A third of the funds, about $700 billion from pre-sales, where did it end up? The banks report that the government has frozen all of Evergrande's assets, but shouldn't that money be rightfully returned to the people? Instead, it's just blatant theft. He observes that the stock market is now akin to a meat grinder, draining anyone with a bit of money invested in stocks or mutual funds dry, leaving countless families destitute. The tragedy of middle value collapses, requiring entry investments of $3 to $5 million, is beyond the reach of ordinary people. It's the affluent and upper middle classes who are being stripped bare. He asserts, the stock market in China is effectively a policy-driven market, dominated by the party. It's clear who's siphoning off this wealth, the Communist Party. Meng laments that the golden era is over, noting the party's total control and the mass exodus of those who can afford to leave or sell off assets. He adds that despair is rampant among entrepreneurs, and shares his own experience of shutting down after decades due to an utterly hopeless business environment. Solutions seem simple to some observers, like American economist Paul Krugman, who suggests ending financial repression and bolstering social safety nets could help. A report by Chinese researchers last June called for improved legal protections to restore faith eroded since COVID-19. However, the CCP has delegated the resolution of these issues to the Propaganda Department and the Ministry of State Security, pushing a narrative of a bright future for China's economy. State media, such as Xinhua, have rebutted foreign criticisms of China's economic policies and released multiple pieces denouncing the economic challenges faced by Western nations. In response to this move, Wang Guochen, an assistant researcher at the China Economic Research Institute, conveyed to the Epoch Times that China is at a crossroads, moving from the promise of a brighter future to a grim outlook, with a pessimistic view of the future among the populace, as reflected in reduced consumption and deflation. He said, "Now, mainland China has no choice but to advise its citizens to live frugally. What's the alternative? Calling for the Communist Party's resignation. The current dilemma is what the CCP plans to do next if it can no longer showcase economic growth as its triumph. By rejecting democratic reforms and reinforcing autocracy, the regime is only exacerbating the damage to economic progress, creating a harmful cycle. Know who caused the trouble. Chinese people awaken." The CCP's backward steps are unmistakable after the US-China trade war, the constitutional amendment allowing indefinite presidential terms, the crackdown on private businesses, the oppression of Hong Kong, 3 relentless years of a zero-COVID strategy, Shanghai's strict lockdown, and backing Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The people of China are gradually awakening to identify the source of their troubles. A poignant critique appeared on December 4 last year in the last edition of Miscellaneous Essays Selection, a mainland magazine, depicting a giant hand directing people towards a precipice in a satirical cover cartoon thought to ridicule Xi Jinping, the CCP's leader. Sources indicate that despite orders from the top, local officials and rank-and-file civil servants are choosing to keep a low profile, opting for discreet social interactions over bold actions. A popular quip at these meetings, especially when ridiculing absurdities or expressing dissatisfaction with higher-ups, involves blaming that pig, sparking laughter all around, because everyone knows it's a reference to Xi Jinping. Meng Jun pointed directly at Xi as the root problem. The period of reform and openness ended with Xi's ascent. He argues that the solution is straightforward. Xi's departure would rectify the issue, asserting, if he were gone, there'd be no problem. Wang Guochen points out that as economies mature, they naturally pivot towards the service sector, where democracy and freedom fuel growth in fields from entertainment to delivery services, unlike the rigid controls possible in industrial sectors. He observes that if economic momentum slows, rotating political parties could quell public unrest. Yet, mainland China's refusal to adapt, instead reverting to Mao-era autocracy and seclusion, exacerbates the situation. Wang highlights a growing disconnect between the CCP's leadership and the populace, with the former increasingly obsessed with retaining control, leading to widespread disillusionment and aversion among the citizens, making the CCP's rule more problematic. As a result, the leadership faces escalating conflicts and a growing sense of ineffectiveness, a scenario increasingly recognized as governmental dysfunction or failure. Wang cautions that persisting with isolation and economic downturn could lead China down a path similar to North Korea's. He speculates on the CCP's downfall, hinging on public willingness to protest and, crucially, whether security and judicial forces would choose not to turn against the populace. He said, "History's course can hinge on unexpected moments, and it's hard to predict when change might successfully ignite, though precursors often exist." Scholar, Taiwan's Strait War could slash China's population to 280 million by 2100. With rising cross-strait tensions, the looming threat of a Taiwan Strait conflict has garnered increased focus. A recent Bloomberg report highlighted that such a conflict could impose a $10 trillion cost on the global economy. Yet, Yi Fuxian, a demographic expert and senior researcher at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, underscores that the most significant toll would be the dramatic population decline on both sides of the strait, potentially leading to a demographic collapse. Should conflict erupt, he projects that China's population could plummet to 280 million by 2100. He underscores that no victory could compensate for this loss. The Chinese National Bureau of Statistics recently reported China's population at approximately 1.407 billion as of the end of 2023. In a Voice of America article, he detailed how both sides of the strait are experiencing population declines, facing the dual crisis of low fertility rates and aging populations. He draws parallels with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, suggesting the greatest tragedy lies not in immediate casualties but in the resultant birth decline. From 2000 to 2013, Russia's economy grew by an average of 5% annually, with its fertility rate rising to 1.78 by 2015. However, Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea led to Western sanctions, causing economic growth to slow to an average of 0.7% annually from 2014 to 2022 and the fertility rate to drop to 1.42 by 2022. Births fell from 1.94 million in 2015 to 1.4 million in 2021. Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine saw births decline further to 1.26 million in 2023, nearing the post-World War II low in 1999. Since 2014, Russia has seen over 1.8 million fewer births. The war also wreaked havoc on Ukraine's demographics. After 2014, as Ukraine shifted resources to military efforts, its economy shrank. The fertility rate dropped from 1.51 in 2015 to 1.16 in 2021, then to 0.7 in 2023. Fuxian highlights Ukraine's dire population decline, from 45.4 million in 2014 to between 29 and 33 million now. The exodus of childbearing-age women and children suggests a continued drop in births post-war. Challenges like labor shortages, aging, and disabilities will hinder post-war rebuilding, complicating efforts to boost the fertility rate. In the event of a conflict erupting in the Taiwan Strait, Fuxian predicts that millions of individuals will flee Taiwan. If the CCP fails to capture Taiwan, both sides will find themselves locked in a protracted military stalemate, draining Taiwan's resources due to war preparations. This will prompt the withdrawal of critical industrial chains and foreign investments, precipitating an economic downturn and a sharp decline in birth rates. Should the CCP successfully seize control of Taiwan, Taiwan's economy will mirror the stagnation seen in the Northeast region, with its political and demographic outlook even bleaker than that of Hong Kong. Regarding the war's impact on China's population, he highlights official data indicating a fertility rate of just 1.0 in 2023, projected to further decrease. Regardless of the Taiwan Strait conflict's outcome, China will inevitably confront Western sanctions, deteriorating geopolitical conditions, reduced exports, heightened unemployment, and a significant drop in birth rates. He argues that China's initiatives to promote childbirth will prove ineffective in counteracting the birth rate decline resulting from the Taiwan Strait tensions. If China manages to stabilize the fertility rate at 0.7, the total population is projected to dwindle to 1.01 billion and 280 million by 2050 and 2100, respectively, representing 10.7% and 2.9% of the global population. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.